More gang, the Epstein files debacle is continuing, and in this video, I want to just take a closer look at the sordid and very suspicious backstories of Epstein's cellmates. Okay, he had a couple of cellmates while he was in the old Metropolitan Detention Center, and things didn't work out too well for those guys. Right, definitely a little bit suspect. Okay, so the first person that I want to talk about, who was Epstein's cellmate for the first incident where he nearly got deleted, okay, was basically Nicholas Tartaglione. Okay, this guy is a former police officer turned quadruple murderer. So he was Epstein's cellmate during the first little mishap, all right? And he was awaiting trial for quadruple homicide and actually did eventually get sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms in 2024. So, hey, this guy's seen some shit.
That intense emotion from family members of 3 of the victims who did not speak with reporters outside the courthouse, but inside urged the judge not to let Nicholas Tartaglione ever see the light of day again. The former Briarcliff Manor police officer was found guilty last year of killing Martin Luna, Miguel Luna, and Urbano Santiago, who were all family members, and their friend Hector Gutierrez in April of 2016, after torturing them and burying them in a shallow grave on his Orange County property, believing that at least one of the men owed him hundreds of thousands of dollars in a cocaine deal. Tartaglione himself also spoke at sentencing, denying it all, defiantly telling the judge he was an animal rescuing former law enforcement officer who never could have done any of this and was framed. But the judge slammed his denials, calling him delusional, and saying the evidence against him at trial was overwhelming, that his brutal crimes back in 2016 involved torture, planning, greed, and cover-ups, and scolding him for his lack of acceptance or remorse. The only person to speak outside court was Tartaglione's only family member here. She said she believes her cousin is innocent and looks forward to his appeal, but doesn't.
So Epstein's locked in with some pretty nefarious individuals, okay? Now, as a police officer, this guy was apparently known for his propensity to violence, and who knows, he could have actually very well been putting pressure on Epstein while he was in that cell.
Independent journalist Clay Tiffany used his public access TV show to expose government corruption in Westchester County, New York. His blunt accusations angered many, especially Briarcliff police officer Nicholas Tartaglione. Tiffany sued, alleging Tartaglione harassed and assaulted him, once beating him so badly he suffered a broken orbital bone, and warning him to stop lying on air, a case he won. After Tiffany's death in 2015, his claims took on new weight when, in 2016, Tartaglione was arrested and convicted for a drug-related quadruple homicide. But he'll be notoriously remembered as the cellmate and one of the last people to see Jeffrey Epstein alive.
So you see this, it said Epstein lawyers told that cellmate Nicholas Tartaglione actually roughed him up. So this is that article, right? It says Epstein told lawyers that cellmate Nicholas Tartaglione roughed him up. Jeffrey Epstein told his lawyers a hulking ex-cop inflicted the injuries that left him nearly unconscious in his jail cell last month. Who knows? Was this guy sent to do the job and he couldn't pull it off? Who knows, all right? Who knows? Probably not. Probably not. Epstein was treated for neck injuries following the July 23rd incident inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan, law enforcement officials have said. At the time, Epstein was sharing a cell with former Westchester County cop Nicholas Tartaglione, who was facing those 4 drug-related slayings. Epstein told his lawyers, because he's a snitch as well as a PDF file, that the cop roughed him up and that's why they got him off self-deletion watch. Tartaglione's lawyers disputed the account. So I spoke to his lawyers. They never hinted that to me, but must have said something to get off the watch. I do know that Nick was not brought up on any charges at all in the institution, so they cleared him. It's simply false to say Epstein did anything other than try and off himself at least twice and then succeeded when he succeeded. Barker added, we were a little worried that he would make something up to get off S-Watch or try and argue for bail, but it's pretty clear what happened given the end result here. Interesting, right? It says the revelation came as the Manhattan federal judge Richard Berman, who was overseeing the trafficking case against Epstein. Epstein released a Monday letter to the MCC's warden in which he said, what happened on July 23rd remained an open question. It's never been explained. What the BOP concluded about that incident is a little bit suspect, right? An internal investigation was completed, but current investigations by the FBI will include this incident as well. They couldn't break it down. They couldn't work it out, all right? So there were some interesting examples, some interesting news going around. The night Jeffrey Epstein claimed his cellmate tried to kill him. His former cellmate was actually cleared of any wrongdoing in the incident that preceded his death. Okay, it is bizarre. It is bizarre. So basically, okay, he denied everything. It was reported in the Daily News. I never touched the man. Jeffrey Epstein's former cellmate insisted, all right? He insisted. He basically said, I never touched him. He said he wrote in a 2-page handwritten note that he shared the cell with Epstein because he posed no threat to the accused S-offender. As far as Jeff Epstein's concerned, I never touched the man. I despise anyone who hurts children, but whatever was going to happen to him, I was not going to be a part of it. Tartaglione wrote from an 8x10-foot cell he called the box. The prison told Epstein that they were putting me in a cell with him because they knew I would neither hurt nor extort him. The staff here at MCC had hundreds of inmates to choose from, yet I was their first choice. Epstein's first attempted deletion was on July the 23rd in that shell that he was sharing with him. Sources told the news that Tartaglione believed he might have saved Epstein's life by quickly alerting jail staff to the attempted tamming. You weren't supposed to do that, buddy. You weren't supposed to do that. Okay. He was then moved to S-Watch, separating him from Tartaglione. And investigators were trying to determine if he had assaulted Epstein. Okay. It says the night that he claimed that his cellmate tried to kill him, Epstein lay, this is quite a dramatic account, Epstein lay in the fetal position on the floor of his jail cell, unresponsive, with an orange fabric noose tied around his neck. The post-midnight quiet of the MCC secure housing unit was punctured as a corrections officer prepared to call for help. Okay, it was 1:27 a.m., July 23rd, 2019, 18 days before Epstein's actual death. He was breathing, his eyes opening and shutting occasionally, but he wouldn't or couldn't respond to officers' questions and commands, all according to a confidential correctionals officer memo. Okay, they hoisted him onto a stretcher, and it was interesting. Federal officials repeatedly said Epstein's eventual death by suicide was foreshadowed by this earlier attempt. Former Attorney General Bill Barr reiterated the claim that in an August closed-door deposition before the House Oversight Committee, which released the interview transcript last week, Barr, who did not reply to questions from CBS, said in his testimony he knew about the incident, which he viewed as an attempted deletion. Barr said he thought it was indicative of Epstein's state of mind. Oh, nothing to see here. All right. Jail staff memos and other never-before reported documents obtained, as well as interviews with more than a dozen people who interacted with Epstein before and after the incident, reveal a murkier picture than the one depicted by Barr. The new documents have surfaced amid persistent speculation over Epstein's death, despite official conclusions he died by deleting himself. Correctional officers entered his cell on July the 23rd, and they were greeted by a chaotic scene. He was laying on the floor, his bunkie screaming, "I did nothing," and banged on my door to get him out of my cell. Correctional officers believe Epstein he was carried to a cell on a different floor while he was unresponsive. Moments after becoming alert, he gave officers a first-hand account of what happened. He told him that he thought he'd been attacked by a cellmate, an ex-cop who was awaiting trial on 4 M's. He sat up on the bed and told me that he thinks his bunkie tried to kill him. That's what they said. And he apparently said things that previously made Epstein feel threatened. He would later back off the claim, saying he couldn't remember what happened. And his cellmate has disputed the initial allegation and said he tried to revive Epstein. As with his eventual death, just like with his eventual death, even though the camera's supposed to be working, any camera footage of the incident was either mislaid, lost, or never captured by the facility's faulty system. What a coinky-dink. What a coincidence. All right, and he was cleared. He was cleared of any wrongdoing. All right, nothing to see here. Absolutely normal things going on. Okay, absolutely ridiculous. Okay, we've already heard that what he said to his lawyer and all that kind of thing. We've always maintained Nick did nothing wrong, and it's clearly been issues borne by the jail itself. Okay, MCC denied comment on the situation. It says what this means is that whatever happened to Epstein was inflicted on himself for sure. All right, we've proved that now. It looks like a pretty straightforward case of someone who wanted to die. Gosh, if I were him, I'd want to be dead. And there are multitudes of people that would have wanted him dead. It's Corrections 101. Okay, sure, guys. Yeah, sure thing. Sure thing. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, okay, the actual suggestion that Tartaglione tried to save Epstein's life was backed up by this witness statement from Federico Medrano. Okay. He was basically in the MCC. His cellmate was Jacinta Garcia. For the entire period, he recalled that there was a correctional officer referred to as Blank who worked the morning shift. He stated that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday were shower days for inmates in the SHU. And basically, I won't read you a specific section of this. It says the incident happened around 1:20 to 1:30 a.m. There'd been no inmate check at midnight. Medrano was reading a book when he heard a commotion. The guy's cellmate was screaming and banging on the cell door to get the SHU officer's attention. Medrano could only see the guy's cell door and could not see in the cell. It took Officer Blank about 5 minutes to get to the guy's cell, but then Officer Blank turned back around to go get a key to the cell. Officer Blank came back with a lieutenant and 2 other officers. Medrano described the lieutenant as a middle-aged white complexion and one of the officers as a black man. Okay, Medrano stated that he saw 2 orange socks and an orange towel were tied together and then taken out of the cell. Once the cell had been cleaned out, the lieutenant then turned the video camera to where the view of the cell would be recorded. Medrano said that according to the guy's cellmate, the cellmate was sleeping when the guy tried to off himself by hanging from the ladder of the bed. The cellmate said that he thought that the guy had died. Medrano didn't see the guy come back to the SHU before Medrano left on July 26, and he heard the guy was put on S-Watch after the incident. But, okay, years later, Epstein's lawyer would publicly allege that Tartaglione was indeed the one who was responsible for the initial attempt, and he would say that this whole suicide angle is baloney. All right, and a lot of people.
You'll recall Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell in 2019, supposedly from hanging himself with bed sheets. And this was just weeks after the DOJ said he'd already tried to kill himself once and had been on suicide watch. But Epstein told a lawyer that's not what happened at all. Days before Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell, attorney David Schoen met with him for 5 hours. Epstein was optimistic and looking forward to a bond hearing.
I had mapped out kind of a 4-prong defense approach that I thought we should take, and he was very excited about it, very upbeat.
Schoen says Epstein revealed that a few days earlier, his former cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, had placed something around his neck as part of a so-called experiment.
Or prank or something like that going on, and he put a rope around Mr. Epstein's throat and then pulled it. That left the abrasion, left him quite shaken. So on, he didn't feel he was in a position to refuse it.
Tartaglione was a former cop on trial for murdering 4 people. He used a twist tie to strangle one of them. Schoen says Epstein told him Tartaglione pulled the rope around his neck, making an abrasion. When guards saw the marks the next day and assumed Epstein had tried to hang himself, Schoen says Epstein decided not to correct them.
He said that he told the prison officials that he couldn't remember what had happened because he didn't want any trouble. He didn't want to be perceived to be a rat, or, something like that. And he was just hoping the whole incident would go away.
The jail moved Tartaglione out of Epstein's cell for an undisclosed reason and did not put in a new cellmate, even though management had ordered he have one. While unsupervised, with guards sleeping and the cell block cameras not working, Epstein died overnight.
Sure he did, okay. So now newly uncovered documents are basically showing that Tartaglione now claims that his placement in that cell was actually a setup, and now he believes his own life is in danger. Epstein's cellmate claims Trump administration wanted pervert power broker dead. That's what he said. That's a brave man even saying that. Okay, you're a bold kid. So this says Jeffrey Epstein's prison cellmate claims to have evidence that it was the government that wanted the disgraced financier dead and left him unprotected on purpose, according to a document obtained by the Daily Beast. Nicholas Tartaglione, a quadruple murderer and former police officer, filed a pardon commutation petition last summer, in which he claimed that Epstein was deliberately exposed to violence in the hope that he would not survive long enough to stand trial. One of Satan's strongest soldiers, all right? Prior to Epstein's death on August 10th, 2019, that they ruled as a self-deletion, jail bosses decided America's high-profile prisoner should share a cell with an accused mass murderer for reasons that have never been explained. Tartaglione had a reputation for extreme violence and a self-confessed hatred of child offenders. Tartaglione, who Epstein told prison guards had tried to kill him 3 weeks before he was found dead, claims it's no coincidence that he was deliberately moved into the same cell as Epstein and placed in the same cell as the convicted offender. In a 21-page petition obtained by the Daily Beast, Tartaglione says he believes the Trump administration wanted Epstein dead. A spokesperson for the White House said anyone can submit a pardon request like much anything else on the Daily Beast. Rights shouldn't be taken their garbage seriously. President Trump is the final decider on all clemency and pardon requests. Trump repeatedly denied any knowledge or involvement in Epstein's criminal activity, but he's been haunted by his decades-long associations with him. Right? Them associations are definitely not good. The circumstances around the Epstein's death remain controversial, and many in his circle, including Mark and his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, his former butler, and his legal team, don't believe that he took his own life. All right. This week, an outspoken podcaster, Joe Rogan, once a Trump supporter, also blasted the government for placing Epstein in a cell with Tartaglione. Says it's weird that they took a guy who's one of the most high-profile defendants ever, and you put him in jail with a mass murderer. Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. Reports into Epstein's death blamed widespread institutional failings, but they were riddled with inconsistencies. A prison psychologist who saw Epstein in the weeks before his death reported that his said self-deletion was against his religion, and insisted he was too cowardly to hurt himself because he couldn't stand pain. Epstein's lawyer, Reed Weingarten, later told a judge overseeing Epstein's case at or around the time of his death, "We did not see a despairing or despondent person." It's very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. They're talking about a document in the Epstein files that showed investigators flagged an orange-colored jail figure on jail surveillance moving towards Epstein's housing tier around 10:29 p.m. on August the 9th, 2019, despite official earlier assurances that no one entered the area that night. No one entered. Oh, whoops, maybe they did. The FBI's observation memo described the images as possibly an inmate, while the DOJ Inspector General's review treated it as a corrections officer. 3 weeks before he died, he was semi-conscious with the injuries around his neck. He told guards Tartaglione attempted to strangle him. Okay. He claimed that he had tried to save Epstein's life, having discovered him on the floor with a piece of string around his neck. So I never touched the man. I despise anyone who hurts children. But whatever was going to happen to him, I was not going to be a part of it. He basically said he knows that he was a curious choice of cellmate for Epstein. The staff at MCC had hundreds to choose from, yet I was their first choice. He's writing for a pardon. So it's no coincidence that prior to trial, I was transferred to the MCC Manhattan and deliberately placed in the same cell as Jeffrey Epstein. He explained the bloody, violent nature of his crime was well known to his prosecutor, Maureen Comey, who was also the lead prosecutor on the Epstein case. He said there were several attempts made on his own life after he had been unwittingly dragged into Epstein's orbit. He said, I was clearly not protected on purpose, nor was Epstein. I truly believe the government wanted both Epstein and me dead. The petition also includes obvious attempts to curry favor with the president, and he makes accusations against Comey, the daughter of Trump nemesis James Comey, who's been fired from the DOJ. All right. He says he tried to get Epstein to implicate Trump in exchange for his freedom, but also claims Epstein told me President Trump was not involved in Epstein's crimes. That is what you want to say, for sure. The former police officer also claims he was framed for the kidnapping and murders of 4 men. He was convicted in 2024 and is serving 4 consecutive life sentences, meaning it's unlikely he will ever be released. But what's crazy, is that Federico Madrino Rancia, this is somebody who you need to get to know, all right? He provided the account of the suicide attempt on Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, the attempt that he made himself. Now, this is his name, okay? This is his name as far as, like, he's basically listed as, like, having brought a lawsuit against somebody for a personal injury. He's a ghost. That's the only explanation of him. There is absolutely no history of him, okay? He was basically one of the people that provided the account of the suicide attempt and was apparently in there at the time. But no trace of this guy anywhere. So there's his name in a list of people that were interviewed, inmates that were interviewed about this situation. And this is the person that wrote that report, basically saying that he believes that they tried to save his life. You know, that basically Tartaglione was trying to save Epstein's life, that he wasn't trying to kill him, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. But there is another person on here that is very interesting. Johnny Contreras. Okay. He provided another witness account of the night that Epstein died. And he was sentenced in 2023 to a pretty grisly situation, okay? He's apparently a member of the big M to the S to the 1 to the 3, right? It's crazy. So It says, alleged MS-13 member sentenced to 35 years in prison in connection to 3 Long Island
Alleged member of
killings.
MS-13 will spend 35 years in prison in connection with the brutal murders of 3 men here on the island. Johnny Contreras pled guilty last year to federal racketeering charges in the 3 killings. Prosecutors say Contreras participated in 2 murders in 2013 in Central Islip and 1 in Babylon in 2015. All 3 were killed after they were mistakenly assumed to be members of rival gangs.
Interesting, right? So, when Epstein died, he was found with a scrap of paper in his cell with this guy's name and phone number on it. Or I don't know if that's his prison number. It says, this is the guy with life in 213. I'll help if LL can help him out. So he's trying to help people out. He's trying to do little favors for dudes that he's meeting in there, right? It's very interesting. So the last person, obviously, is the guy who was actually Epstein's cellmate the night that he died. And I've talked about this in a previous video, but he very suspiciously, all right? He says, and I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. It is suspicious. I don't know if I believe that this actually is, you know, a specific... If we could be assuming that this perhaps is one of those people who was disappeared in connection to this. But he did pass away, just like all them other guys that knew a little bit too much about the situation. Suddenly, he died not that long after coming into contact with Epstein, right? COVID-19 kills Jeffrey Epstein's former cellmate. On November the 27th, 2020, Ephraim Stone Reyes died in his mother's Bronx, New York apartment from COVID-19, which he contracted at the Queens, New York Correctional Center, who's 51. Prior to his stay at the Queens lockup, Reyes was housed in the Manhattan Correctional Center, MCC, where he was Jeffrey Epstein's last cellmate. Reyes was questioned by the FBI about Epstein and his alleged mistreatment by MCC staff. Reyes cooperated, albeit reluctantly, which earned him a move to QCC, where cooperating witnesses like Tekashi 6ix9ine were being held. Reyes' niece, Angelique Lopez, said that he'd been afraid his FBI interview would follow him and affect him negatively. Lopez gave an interview to the Daily Mail after her uncle died, recounting many of the abusive incidents he told her about Epstein suffering at the hands of MCC staff and prisoners alike. Staff were treating him like crap. They were making him sleep on the floor. They wouldn't let him sleep on a cot. Other prisoners knowledgeable about Epstein's vast fortune continually tried extorting him for money. Lopez said her uncle voiced skepticism that Epstein could have actually hung himself from the bunk frames in the cell because they simply weren't tall enough to allow for hanging. Epstein was supposed to be on S-Watch when he successfully committed S. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, which is responsible for operating MCC, have reassigned its warden and several ranking staff members, according to an ABC Nightly News report. Epstein's alleged suicide remains open and an ongoing investigation conducted by the U.S. Department of Justice. And Epstein was also found with this guy's details on a scrap of paper in his cell. Look, guys, if you spent time with Epstein... Don't care if it was on the island. Don't care if it was in the feds. Don't care if it was way back in the day on the college lacrosse team. All right, they're coming for you. They're either coming for you to put you in the files, coming for you to put you in jail eventually. Maybe a new administration might come through and put some people in jail, or they really coming to kill you. All right, they come to kill you. You about to get COVID. You're about to get the germ. You're about to have a mysterious illness. You're about to fall out a window. You're about to take a Xan that's laced with fent. It is so twisted. All right, so look. All right, this video, I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper into some of the people that Epstein spent time with at the end, read a couple of these articles. I thought it was interesting, okay? But I do have a bunch more like detailed deep dives on Epstein coming. A little bit tired tonight. I feel like I'm fumbling my words a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know if that was necessarily the deepest dive that I could have done, but I will be back with more deep dives. I've got 3 topics that I want to get to. I'm going to do them tomorrow. But I'm excited to show you those, man. So hope you enjoyed that video. I'm very excited to tap in with you guys on the next run of content. Thank you so much. And until next time, I'm out, gang. Peace.